So guys, I know this looks like a humble noodle dish, but can I say the flavors, the basil, the chili, the garlic, the whole thing comes together and it is just like a bowl of heaven. This is one recipe you guys just have to make. There are a couple of key ingredients that make this dish what it is, and number one is the spicy element. So I'm going to use some chilies here, I'm going to use some hot ones, and it really, to me, is one of the defining characters of this dish. It's called drunken noodles, Pat Kimao. And you know, there are various stories about why it's called drunken noodles. You know, the guy was drunk that made it, or he was hungover when he was eating it. But anyway, I like to think that it's a really good hangover cure. And for me, hangover cures mean spicy chilies. Okay, so we're going with a few different chilies here. Use whatever chilies you've got in your area that are spicy. I've got a mixture of some local Thai chilies here, so I want some of those. And I want some garlic, a fair bit of garlic. Should be garlicky and spicy and herby. That's what this dish is all about. Okay, now whenever I'm starting things off in a mortar and pestle, I always just add a little pinch of salt. That kind of abrasion helps to start breaking down the fibers. Now just be careful here because hangover and chili in the eye do not mix. Luckily I have glasses, so I'm good, but you guys watch out. Now you're just looking for a rough paste, no need to go all fine dining here, and that's what we're looking for. The next key ingredient is basil. Now in Thailand we use what's called bai grapao, and grapao is also known as holy basil or hot basil outside of Thailand. And you can tell you've got the holy basil by looking at the leaves. You've got a little bit of a jagged edge, the leaves are a little bit furry, and you've got a green furry stem. Now this basil has the most amazing flavor. It has this herbal hotness to it. It's really hard to describe it. It's really beautiful. If you can find it or grow it, please do, you will love it. Now the alternative here is to use Thai basil or regular Italian basil. Don't be put off by the basil, guys. It is great to have the holy basil, but I don't want you missing out on this dish. So the next thing we need to do is talk about our pork. Okay, so I'm using pork belly today for a couple of reasons. One is it's just really tasty. And I know that a lot of times when you're cooking pork belly, you're usually slow braising it. But do you know cooking it really fast and quick in a wok as well keeps the pork belly really tender. You don't have to slow braise a pork belly. So if you get your pork belly and it's got a little bit of skin on it, so I'm just cutting off a portion and I can see there's a bit of skin there. So to take that skin off, I slice in here. And then I'm just going to hold my knife steady, but wiggle the pork. And then you'll find that that skin comes off. And I just want some really nice thin slices of this pork belly. And I'm starting to come up against a little bit of fat here. Now, that is a good thing because the other reason I wanted to use pork belly is so that I can actually use the fat instead of using oil. So I'm going to save this pork fat and I'm going to render that down to start my noodles. And that's actually a little street vendor trick that I've learned since living in Bangkok. I just want to sizzle those pieces of pork fat so they release all that really good juicy stuff that we're going to keep to fry our noodles in. So one last thing before we get started in our wok, and we've got to talk about noodles. So fresh rice noodles are typically the noodles that you find for this dish. Now I know they're a little hard to find in regular supermarkets, so I do have a recipe on my YouTube channel for making these at home, homemade rice noodles, and it's pretty simple. If not, you could use like a large dried rice stick noodle, but these are really worth making or seeking out from your Asian grocer. Now I've got a good sort of couple of tablespoons there of pork fat, so I'm going to take those pieces out. And it's time for everything to get smoky and spicy and very chili crazy. That chili and the garlic already is just smelling amazing. Now in with my pork. Whew, this is really spicy. Okay, that pork is just about done, so I'm going to add in some greens. I've just got some young Chinese kale, but you can use whatever greens you've got at home. Whoa, these are going to be good. chili spice, whoa. Okay, now the rice noodles, and then oyster sauce, fish sauce, a little bit of dark soy for colour, and then a little bit of sugar. Wow, look at that colour, that is amazing. Now you don't want this dish to be drowning in sauce. You really should only have the barest minimum to sort of just cover all those noodles and the pork. Now everything is looking amazing. The final key ingredient, our basil. Just going to tip that in. At this point you can turn the heat off and just toss that through. All right, and it's just time to serve up. All I need is a big bowl, a nice comfy couch, and my spicy noodles. One of Thailand's most iconic street food noodle soups, beautiful plump wontons, roasted pork, and a broth so flavorful you won't believe. You need to practice your noodle slurp, guys. This is my version of barbecue pork wonton noodle soup. So I live here in Bangkok and I can get this noodle soup pretty much anytime I want. There's a street cart just down the road that I can go and order it from, but you guys probably not so lucky where you are. But I'm gonna walk you through how you can make this street food classic at home. It's not as hard as you might think. So let's start with the broth first. I'm gonna get all of my aromatics ready for that. Now I wanna start with some garlic. Just bruise these guys. And now some ginger as well. And some star anise. These three things are going to give a really beautiful flavor to our broth. For the base of our soup, I'm starting with some chicken stock. You could use homemade or store-bought. We are going to doctor it up a little bit, so either is fine. And to really boost the flavor here, I'm going to add some pork bones. So you can use pork spare ribs, pork soup bones, just add them in and they really do make a difference to the flavor. You could use chicken wings as well. And then in go those aromatics. And now for some seasoning. I've got some soy sauce and then a little bit of salt as well. Don't want too much soy sauce because that will color the broth. So the salt adds that without the color. And this doesn't take too long because we've started with a chicken-based broth already. I'm just gonna let this simmer away while I get everything else ready. So wontons, we're gonna make our own, but if you wanted to make this even easier on yourself, you could use some frozen ones as well. Pork mince. And I like to go with a pork and prawn combo. So I've got some whole prawns here and I just need a really fine mince on these. And now I also want some finely chopped spring onion, some sesame oil, and then here are a couple of ingredients that really help with the texture of our wonton. So I want some corn flour, and that kind of binds everything together, makes it sticky, and then gives us that nice pop when you go to chew into your wonton. And then a little bit of water, that extra liquid will keep everything nice and soft. Now a dash of white pepper and some salt. And then you just need to mix this until everything gets nice and sticky and very well incorporated. Now you want to take a wonton wrapper, grab a nice little dollop of filling there. I like my wontons to be fat and plump. Just a little bit of water to help seal the edges, and you really can be rough and ready with this. No fancy pleating required. Just kind of smush the edges up over that filling and press together. Now this will make more wontons than you need for this recipe, but I've never found that to be a problem. Just pop them in the freezer and then you've got them ready for any kind of wonton dumpling emergency. So by now your stock would have been simmering for about 15-20 minutes depending on how quick you are with your wonton wrapping. I'm just going to skim off a little bit of that stuff that's on the top. Now I just want to check this for seasoning. That is just perfect. You know, it's so amazing how quickly those pork bones impart a lot of flavor into that soup broth. Doesn't need a thing. Now just strain that stock. I like to save the pork bones for chewing on later. That's just me. Okay guys, we're nearly there. Just a couple more things we need to get ready. We need some vegetables. Now this is the vegetable we would use here in Bangkok. It's choy sum. I just want some nice little bite-sized pieces. You could use bok choy, pak choy, any kind of Asian green is great. So the other thing we want is some Chinese barbecue pork. You can either buy this from a Chinese restaurant or you could watch a video on how to make it on my YouTube channel. Pretty easy to have at home and great to store in the freezer. A few slices. Now the noodles. So whenever I'm ordering this at a street cart, I usually go for what we call bami noodles or Chinese egg noodles. But you could use thin rice noodles if you like, or any kind of noodle is good. The key here, especially with these Chinese egg noodles, is this needs to happen really fast. Overcooked noodles are really not a joy. So I do this individually because it's the best way to control the cooking time of the noodle. And now a little bit of the green vegetable, and we just want a couple of shakes in that boiling water and then straight out. And now we do the wontons. I always recommend cooking your noodles and wontons in a separate pot of water to your broth, because both the noodles and wontons have some floury starch on the outside which can mess with your beautifully made soup. So just into that same water that I had the noodles in. And these just need a couple of minutes. These are looking good. They go straight onto my bowl. And then some of that beautiful barbecue pork. And then some soup. A little sprinkling of spring onion just on the end here. So there you go guys. If you can't get to Bangkok to eat this amazing noodle soup, you can make it at home. Okay, so I'm gonna dig right in here because I'm kind of hungry. Dumplings make everything better. And some noodles. You need to practice your noodle slurp, guys. That broth with those noodles, wow, it's amazing how much flavor you can get in there. So good. Steaming bowl of Thai chicken noodle soup. This one, my friends, is truly joyous. And there are a lot of little steps to perfecting this at home, but I'm going to walk you through it. We'll get there together. This is my street food style Thai chicken noodle soup. All right, so getting the ultimate perfect bowl of Thai chicken noodle soup does require a little bit of a journey, guys. It's not difficult, but there are quite a few little steps here, but we are going to walk through it together. And can I say that the results are truly, truly worth the time. All right, let's get going on making our broth first of all. And this is where we're really going to get a little technical to get the most clear, beautiful, pure chicken broth at the end. So we want to start off with a whole chicken. And what I want to do here is break down the chicken first of all. So we're going to start with the legs. Now, you don't need a massive cleaver like I've got here actually. You can just use a regular knife. We're going to just gently cut through everything, but you know, I don't know, big cleavers are always fun. So what we do is just open it up, kind of just separate that leg bone, and you just want to kind of pop it. And then you can just get your knife and literally just slide straight through where you've popped that joint. Turn the chicken over. And there is our first little leg. Pop that guy onto a plate. Okay, now the wings. Now always I find when you're breaking down the chicken, it's a combination of slicing and popping or cracking. So just cracked that joint out and then slice through. I've got some other wings here as well, so I'm going to add that wing to those. And now we're left here with our breast meat on the bone, and we want to take that breast meat off nicely. We want to do it nicely. So just slice through the center just off center actually, off that middle bone. And the way I like to do this is you just kind of like slice as close to the bone as possible. And just by thinking about slicing close to the bone, we're sort of getting really nice and tight, getting all of that meat off. Okay, and that is one very neat piece of chicken breast there. So these pieces of chicken, we're going to deal with those a little bit later on so they can go away into the fridge. Now it's really this chicken carcass that I'm after for this first part of the recipe. So this guy goes straight into my stock pot. And then just to add a bit more flavor and gelatin from some bones and also some meatiness, I'm going to use some wings. I don't like to use the meat, as in the breast and the legs, for the stock itself, because we are going to boil the living daylights out of these bones, and the meat itself, all that flavor should come out and into the liquid. So what's left is not going to have that much flavor. I don't want to waste my chicken breast and chicken legs. So there is method to the madness, everyone. There's stuff in the wings, it's got to go out into the liquid. So chop it up. Chop each wing into some smaller pieces here. That's going to allow a lot more of the flavor and all that stuff that's like in there close to the bone, all that's going to come out into your broth, which is what you want. Okay, now get these wings into your stock pot as well. Now pour in enough water to cover up that chicken. Okay, so now we're going to do a bit of like a false start, if you like, for our broth. I want to bring this up to a simmer so I can get a lot of the kind of first bits of gunkiness out of the chicken, if you know what I mean. The stuff that comes up to the top, I want all of that out, and then I'm going to skim it off and get rid of that water, and we're going to start again. This is one of the little technical points that's going to give us a really clear, clean broth at the end. I promise. Stick with me. Okay, so there's all the gunky stuff that I was talking about. Now I want to get my chicken pieces out of that. And now I want to rinse this chicken off because I really want to make sure I don't have any of those bits and pieces that are stuck to the outside. And I also need to clean that pot up and throw away that liquid. Okay, and so here we go again. Chicken in the pot. And now top this up with some water, and this is going to be our broth starter. So I want about 5 litres I'm doing today. If you've got a really huge stock pot, it would be great to double the quantities and do an even bigger batch, because you know, if you're going to go the trouble of doing all these steps, you may as well have lots of backup broth that you can put in the freezer for later. Now bring this up to a really gentle simmer, and I want to leave that to slowly bubble away for 2 hours. That's right, 2 hours, so it sounds like a long time, but really, I mean, you can watch, you know, a movie on Netflix or something. It's not going to be too much of a hardship. But what I don't want is a hard boil, because a hard boil is going to make our stock cloudy and also going to release more of that kind of scummy stuff that we don't want. Now, while it is going, I want you to come back and check every so often and just use a ladle to kind of skim off any of those little bits that come up to the surface. Okay, so my broth is just about done, which gives me some time to fix up a few other little bits and pieces. First of all, we want to make our condiments for the end. And for me, a Thai noodle soup has got to have the condiments. It's like truly make or break. One of the essentials is garlic oil. So I'm going to take myself a fair load of garlic here, and I'm going to chop this with the skins on, because the skins get really nice and crispy in that garlic oil. I don't want all the skin, but just start chopping first. And you'll see any sort of large chunks of skin, I just kind of take those out. Now I want some vegetable oil here. Just any neutral tasting oil is fine. Rice bran oil, peanut oil is good too. And now just add in all of that garlic. And now you really want to keep an eye on things here, guys. Don't walk off and leave this to its own devices. Garlic will burn in like a second the minute you turn away. So I'm just waiting for it to sizzle here. Try to keep it moving every so often. And then once that's just tinged golden, and I mean just tinged, just like this, take it off, because it will continue cooking in the bowl. And there you go, that garlic will darken up and get really nice and crispy as it sits there. Now the other essential condiment, chili vinegar. So any kind of mild chili. I'm not after a lot of spice here. This is more about a bit of tang, a bit of color, and just some plain old white distilled vinegar. All right, your 2 essential Thai noodle soup condiments done. Now the other thing I want to do here is make a few little extra special bits and pieces that are really going to make our broth like super amazing. The first thing is a garlic, coriander, pepper paste. So I need some garlic for that first of all, and I just want to pop those cloves so I can take the skin off. Now you will see this paste in a lot of my Thai cooking, a lot of my mum's Thai cooking, in fact anyone's Thai cooking generally. It's called samgler. That's right, isn't it? Yes. Just had to check. My Thai isn't exactly fluent and sometimes I pronounce things wrong, and you guys love to tell me about that. But anyway, samgler is the name of this very ancient kind of paste. It's the basis of lots of curry paste. We put it into stir fries, we put it into like all sorts of things. It's like the European sofrito. It's a base kind of flavor paste. There you go, some information there that you might find useful or not. So I want some black peppercorns in here as well, and some coriander root. Now I know a lot of you guys have had trouble finding coriander bunches with the root on the end because you're telling me that your local supermarket just chops them off, which is such a tragedy, my goodness. Anyway, if you can't get one with the roots, just use some of that stem part. Now just pound that to a rough paste. Okay, so this is the situation that you're after, really rough. Now the other thing I want here is some lemongrass, just 1 stalk, and I purposely don't want to pound that because I don't want to make a really heavy lemongrass flavor in our broth. I just want it to be like a really beautiful background high note that kind of intrigues you as you eat the broth. Now I also want another aromatic, some ginger, and some spring onion. Now an interesting one here is Chinese celery. So if you have a look, it's kind of looks like a baby celery, if you like. A lot thinner stalks, and the flavor is a lot milder. So if you were to use some regular celery for this, please just use like maybe a piece of stalk that big, really small amount, because I don't want the celery flavor taking over, and this one is very mild. So just a couple of pieces. Now, finally, we can come back to our beautiful little broth, and the smell of chicken broth simmering on my stovetop always makes my household so happy, makes me happy. Now, I have been skimming this off, and you can see we've got a nice sort of base here, and I'm going to add in all of those aromatics. So in goes our pile here, and now our garlic, coriander, pepper paste. Now just let all of those flavors make friends for another 20 minutes, and then we're going to come back. Don't go away, come back. Okay, so now we're going to actually cook some chicken to put into our noodle soup, and I'm going to use the breast here. I'm going to save these legs for something else, like for some roasting or another dish, because I don't really need all of that chicken meat. All right, now those chicken breasts need 10 minutes tops. I like to keep my chicken really nice and juicy. Any longer than that and they dry out. All right, let's fish our chicken out of there. Now just pop those aside, we will work on those later. Now just give this one final skimming here. And I like to take out the chicken bits as much as possible. First of all, makes straining a lot easier. Now we can strain out our soup. And what we need to do here is a final seasoning adjustment. We've added no salt into here so far, so let me just have a taste and see where we're at. That is such a good chicken broth. And just that little pop of those extra little flavors at the end really makes such a big difference. Beautiful. Now, I do want some fish sauce here and a little dash of sugar. Look, so if you were eating this at a street stall in Thailand, you would have some sugar there on the side that people kind of tip in as much as they like. I like to add it in here so that everyone's getting that little balance of the sweetness and the saltiness. And then I also want some salt as well. Okay, now let's see. That is perfect to my taste. You can add a little bit more salt if you would like. I like to serve fish sauce at the table so that everyone can season their own bowl perfectly to their own taste. So I purposely leave this a little under-seasoned. Now let's give our chicken a little bit of attention here, and this is my little trick, I guess, for instead of standing there like, you know, stringing the chicken apart, I just get my pestle or a rolling pin and just give it a good little bash. See how that kind of breaks apart the pieces here? And then I can just slice and chop. And now a few more bits and pieces for the end. I keep saying bits and pieces. There are a lot of bits and pieces in this recipe, but it's all worth it, I promise. Okay, first of all, I want some coriander, some spring onion, and Chinese celery. Again, you could just use regular celery, but just not very much of it. Now for the noodles, I'm going classic street food style here, and I'm using some semi-dried rice noodles. This is what we would call here in Thailand sen lek if you were ordering these from the street cart lady. Now I just want a little bit of that into my little spider here. But you could choose your own adventure when it comes to noodles here, guys. You could choose an egg noodle, you could do a thicker rice noodle, totally up to you. And I want some bean shoots as well. I like to blanch the bean shoots in the water. I feel like they need a little bit of a taming down of their flavor. I don't want them to take over. All right, so into some boiling water. And because of these noodles, they're almost fresh, so they literally take like seconds. And get them straight into my bowl. And now finally, we're at the assembly stage. So let's make our perfect bowl. Okay, a little bit of chicken first of all. And all of our little greens. And that beautiful, beautiful broth that we have labored lovingly over. Just look at that color. I mean, look at how clear it is. Yum. That is just perfection already. Doesn't that already look glorious? But now we have all of our little extra bits and pieces. So I want some garlic oil and some garlic, crispy garlic bits, some chilies and some of that chili vinegar. And always you would season with a little bit of fish sauce here. And then not always, but for me always, a little extra sprinkling of some dried chili powder. Oh, wow, and there you go. Oh, that even just, I can smell that vinegar and the chili and the garlic really getting in there and making friends with the rest of my broth here. Such a truly joyous smell. Yum. Okay, you want to mix everything together. And then let's see how we've gone. It looks deceptively simple when you're just looking at the bowl, but when you taste that broth mixed with all those little extra condiments that we've made and the herbs and everything, it's just like a beautiful little symphony. Yum. Juicy, tender chunks of chicken on top of rice that is so full of flavor you will not even believe. And then the spicy sauce, this is like the ultimate chicken rice. Okay guys, so this is like one of my all-time most favorite Thai street foods. It's khao man gai. Now, obviously the traditions of this dish come from that very famous Chinese version, the Hainan chicken rice. But in Thailand we do things a little bit differently, but there's still the same 4 components. We've got the chicken, we've got to get that perfect, we've got the rice, we've got the soup, and we've got the sauce. Now the sauce is a little bit spicy here in Thailand. Anyway, let's get on to the cooking part. So I'm going to start off with some ginger. So we're going to start off making the broth and the chicken first. So I just need some slices here. And then I'm starting off with some chicken stock here. I just think that it adds a bit more extra flavor when you're poaching the chicken in chicken stock rather than just water. So I'm going to put my ginger into there, and I want some spring onions as well. And just to make sure we get all of the beautiful spring onion aroma and flavor, I'm going to just give it a quick bruising. Okay, that goes in as well. And now the chicken. So before we do anything with our chicken, what I want to do is just cut off any extra bits of fat and skin, because I'm going to render that chicken fat down, and that is going to give us so much flavor in our rice. Unbelievable. So don't skip this step. Okay, just take a little bit off the back here. And now anywhere you can see excess skin or fat, just trim that off. Okay, let's turn this guy around, and there's usually quite a bit in the neck area here. So I've ended up with around 1/4 cup full of bits and pieces here. If your chicken was particularly lean, then perhaps start off with some skin on chicken thigh, take the skin and the fat from that. You don't need too much. Anyway, I'm gonna get my chicken now, and I want a good, decent amount of salt on here. Just rub that in. Okay, now the chicken goes into the hot stock. And now, depending on the size of your pot, you might need to add a bit more water here. I need to add a little bit more. I just want enough liquid to come up just almost to the top of that breast. Okay, so just bring that up to a gentle simmer, and I'm gonna put a lid on, not completely covering, just a little bit ajar, and just let that chicken cook for about an hour or until it's cooked all the way through. Now let's get started on the rice part. So all those little bits and pieces that we cut off the chicken, I'm gonna get that into a saucepan, just sprinkle with a little bit of salt, and then just over a medium kind of heat, just wait for that chicken fat to melt and render, and for the chicken skin to turn a lovely golden color. Okay, so this is looking good. You can see we've got a couple of tablespoons there of rendered chicken fat. So I'm gonna pull some of these pieces out. And don't worry, these little crispy bits are not gonna go to waste. They will be eaten by me. Okay, I don't mind leaving a few bits and pieces in here. Just want to take most of them out. And the next bit of like flavor base that we want for our rice is garlic. So I've got some finely chopped garlic here. Goes in. Now don't have your heat too high here. I don't want to burn the garlic. I do want it to infuse the chicken fat with its lovely flavor, and I do want it to turn like a lovely golden brown. So while that's happening, I'm just going to have a quick check on my stock. And what you'll need to do here from time to time as that chicken is cooking is just scoop off some of this scummy stuff at the top. That way you'll get a really nice, beautiful, clear broth at the end. Okay, let me check on my garlic. Now that is looking really good. We've just got a little slight touch of golden brown there. So I'm gonna add in my rice. Now I'm using Thai jasmine rice, but any long grain rice will do. Give that a mix. I really want all of those rice grains coated in that beautiful chickeny, garlicky oil. Okay, now at this point I wanna add in some of the stock that the chicken has been simmering in. And I've got about 2 cups of rice here, and generally I use about 2.5 cups of liquid for 2 cups of rice. Okay, now give this rice a stir and really use your spoon to scrape up the bottom of the pan, because I want to make sure that all of that lovely chickeny stuff that was stuck to the bottom comes up and infuses my rice with flavor. Okay, now to make sure we have the most beautiful, tender and not gluggy rice, this is what we need to do. Just bring this up to a simmer. I'm gonna put the lid on, and I'm gonna leave it slightly ajar because I want some of that liquid to evaporate out of the pot. And that needs about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and see how we're going. Okay, let's come back to our chicken, and because we stole some of that chicken stock for the rice, I'm gonna top it up with a little bit more water. Just leave that guy simmering away. Okay, so we've got our chicken going, we've got our broth or our soup going, and we have our rice going. Last thing we need to do is the sauce, and here is where the Thai version differs from the Chinese version. So this is a very typical Thai style of sauce, I would say. It's spicy, a little tangy, a little salty. So I'm gonna start off with some garlic, pop that guy open, peel that off. And now the root part of the coriander. So that's simply this part down the bottom here. I know some of you have written to me and said, well, your supermarket only sells the stem and not the root. That's okay, use some of the stem instead of the root part. And then some ginger as well. Just peel that with a spoon. And a little pinch of salt, which will help break down some of those fibers. And now you want to pound this to a very smooth, fine paste. Okay, so this is what you're looking for. Okay, so the next ingredient is really what gives this sauce its very special Thai character. It's always used in this sauce, and it's called tao gio. It's basically soybean paste. So you can see here, you can see the little bits of the soybean in there, and you can find this in a lot of Asian grocers or Thai supermarkets. It looks like this is just, you know, a standard brand, but what you're looking for is where it says soybean paste. There's a Chinese version as well, you could use that, but do try and seek it out. It really does give a really beautiful salty umami flavor. So that goes in here. And then I want some soy sauce. Okay, and then this one here is a sweet dark soy sauce. So it's a little thicker than standard dark soy sauce. And in Indonesia, you would call this one kecap manis. So there you go, look out for that one at your Asian grocer too. And then I want some vinegar as well, and a little bit of sugar. Okay, let's give that a mix and a taste. I love that. It's got that garlicky coriander hit, and then like tangy and salty. Perfect. Now what it does need is the chili spice. I need some heat here. So I'm using these bird's eye chilies. These guys are quite fiery. Okay, and there you go. Now each stall in Bangkok that sells khao man gai will always have their own version of this, and I love trying them all because to me it's like the hallmark of a really good khao man gai joint if it has a really good sauce. Oh, and I almost forgot, I want a little bit of fresh coriander in there as well. Okay, so this chicken has totally been making my stomach growl for like an hour now. It smells beautiful. Now I just want to have one last go at taking off any of that stuff on the top, and I want to get my chicken out onto a chopping board. And now just pick out all of those aromatics in there. I don't bother straining this one. I don't mind if it's a little rustic, but up to you. If you would like to strain it, you can. Now you'll want to check this for seasoning because of course we had a couple of top-ups with the water, so it's going to be up to your own kind of personal taste how much salt you want to add here. It's so chickeny and comforting. Ah, I love it. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of salt here. Perfect. And just that little extra bit of salt really makes the ginger and the spring onion flavors really sing in there. Beautiful. Now I want to check on our rice here, and I can see that the liquid's been absorbed and the rice grains here look super tender and not very gluggy. But the secret for whenever I'm cooking jasmine rice is I put the lid back on and then I turn the heat off, but I leave the pan on the warm sort of stovetop, and that allows the steam to really permeate evenly throughout that rice right down to the bottom of the pot, and then everything is perfectly cooked. So you want to leave that for a good 5 to 10 minutes. Okay guys, so now let's break down the chicken. There's a little bit of skill here, but I'm going to walk you through it. It's all going to be good. Okay, start off with the legs. Okay, now be careful here. The chicken is hot. If you don't have asbestos hands like me, maybe just let it cool down a little bit. I'm just going to go straight on in there. Okay, so you just want to slice through that skin in between the leg and the breast. Flatten that out a little bit. Just kind of bend those legs down a bit. And that way we can kind of see where the joint is here. And I want to cut through that so it's a nice clean cut. Now there's a little part in here called a chicken oyster underneath. I just want to make sure my knife is catching that because that's a really tasty part. Okay, and now the wings. And the same thing here, just kind of pull the wing out and then cut through the joint Okay, now to make everything easier when we're dealing with the chicken breast part, I want to take the wishbone out first. So I'm going to get my knife and just slice through in here and on the other side as well. And then just use your fingers to kind of feel where the bone is and pull it out. Okay, so there's your wishbone. And when I was little, my mom used to always save these, and my dad and I would have the little like pinky competition, you know, where you pull the wishbone and the person who has the biggest piece gets to make a wish. Anyway, a little bit of trivia you probably didn't need to know about. Now, the rest of the chicken breast. So you want to slice directly through the middle. And the whole idea here is that we just want really beautiful, large pieces of that breast without sort of mucking it up and tearing it up too much. So I just kind of run my knife against the bone, pulling the meat away as I do. Now, so that we can get some really thin slices of chicken and also to kind of break down and tenderize the chicken breast, I'm gonna just give it a light pounding here with my pestle. And now I can thinly slice that. Okay, now we're ready to get everything out onto our plate. Let's have a look at our rice. Now, the other trick here is to always use a fork to fluff up the rice so that you're not breaking up the grains too much, which you can do if you just use a spoon. Now, I just want some rice, and then my chicken, and then some of our beautifully spicy, tangy sauce. A little bit of cucumber as well, and then don't forget about that hot chickeny soup. So there you go, guys, a street food classic. You can totally make it home. And of course, I'm gonna test it out here, make sure you guys are up for a good recipe. That sauce and that chicken is so soft and tender. Yum. This dish makes me so happy. This Indonesian style fried rice is so jam-packed full of flavor, a little sweeter and spicier than your average bear. This is my version of nasi goreng. Okay, so all you guys that are familiar with my channel by now would know that I'm like fried rice obsessed and noodle obsessed and dumpling, all the good things. But I particularly love this style of fried rice, this Indonesian version, because it's just a really jam-packed full of flavor fried rice, which I just love. So let's get on to that. First of all the flavor that we need. And I'm just using some chicken thigh here, and I want to marinate that first of all. Now I want to add some sweet dark soy sauce, and in Indonesia that's called kecap manis. And this sweet dark soy sauce, this is what gives this fried rice its characteristic flavor. So that's what you're looking for when you're shopping for your soy sauce for this one. I'll just give that a mix. And now let's get all our chopping out of the way. So I want an onion for this one, and then a chili as well. So I'm using a fairly mild chili. This is a large red chili, and when I open it up you can see in here that I'm going to leave all the seeds and all the white part inside in there, but if you wanted to make it milder you could take out that little white strip. That's the part that's very spicy. Now the other thing I want to do is get my stir fry sauce all ready to go, and again I'm using that dark sweet soy sauce, quite a fair bit of that, and then just some regular soy sauce as well. So you'll be surprised, regular soy sauce is actually saltier than the dark soy sauce. The dark soy sauce adds sweetness rather than saltiness, that's why you need both. And then the last thing is I've got my rice ready here. So I generally like to use rice that I've made the day before, and I also have a video on my YouTube channel for how to make rice, especially for fried rice, if you are interested in checking that out as well. But we're ready to get frying, which is good because then we're nearly ready to eat. My favorite part. So I just want some oil in my hot wok here, my onion and chilies, and some garlic. Okay, now when I'm adding my protein, I like to make sure there's plenty of hot pan available for that meat to really start to sizzle. So I move everything to the side, and then I'm going to add in my chicken. Now spread that chicken out, because as I said, I really want some hot searing on the chicken rather than having it all clumped together and stewing. And you can see we've got some really beautiful color on that chicken now, which is just perfect. And now I'm going to add in the other ingredient that I think really gives this dish a distinctive flavor, and that is shrimp paste. So I'm using a Thai shrimp paste because I'm here in Bangkok. Obviously, if you can get a hold of an Indonesian shrimp paste, that would be great. Now, shrimp paste is fairly funky, guys. It does have a funky smell. I would suggest not smelling it. Put it straight into your dish and it kind of adds a saltiness and an umami flavor that you can't really detect as being that strong once the dish is actually finished. So do give it a try. Now, I like to make sure that my shrimp paste will dissolve fairly evenly in here. So I'm going to move the ingredients out, add a little bit more oil, and then put that shrimp paste in and just try and dissolve it a little bit with my spoon here. Alright, I'm going to start mixing it through now. And now I'm going to go in with my rice and our sauce. Now you want to stir fry this until every single grain of rice is beautifully coated in that sauce and everything is well combined. Now this is looking amazing. I love this color. Look at that. Oh, so beautiful. Now, one little secret trick that one of my Indonesian friends told me about was to add a little bit of a stock cube at the end, a little bit of extra flavor. Sprinkle that in and mix it through. Okay, so I'm just going to pile my fried rice out onto my plate. Now, as with a lot of Asian fried rices, it's not just about piling the fried rice in the dish, you've got to have some extra bits and pieces. So I'm going to go in with some cucumber and some tomato. And then this is a chili paste called sambal olik, and it is a little salty, a little spicy, and of course I love all things salty and spicy. So I'm going to serve that on the side. And then for me, it's got to be a crispy fried egg. If you want to know how to make this Asian style crispy fried egg, I do have a video on my YouTube channel that you can check out. And then one final thing, some crispy fried shallots. So there you go, guys, my version of Indonesian nasi goreng. So much flavor. Yum.